everybody. Today I want to talk about trusting God in the middle of doubt. When I asked God what he wanted me to talk about in this video, he simply said trusting God, and I thought of this story, and it always exemplifies to me a woman who knew how to trust God and put the Lord's wishes above her own in every area of her life, even in the most dire circumstances. She's mentioned in the Bible in the story of 1 Kings chapter 17 rather. And her story is one that talks about doubt and God providing through that doubt, in the middle of that doubt, and then as a result being able to trust God in a more deeper way. And it talks about how the prophet Elijah comes to the widow of Zarephath, and the Lord says to him, "Go live in the village of Zarephath near the city of Sidon. I have instructed a widow there to feed you." So he went to Zarephath, and he arrived at the gates of the village. He saw the widow gathering sticks, and he asked her, "Would you please bring me a little water in a cup?" And she was going to get it, and he called to her, "Bring me a bite of bread too." But she said, "I swear by the Lord your God that I don't have a single piece of bread in the house, and I have only a handful of flour left in the jar and a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jug. I was just gathering a few sticks to cook the last meal, and then my son and I will die." But Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go ahead and do just what you said. But make a little bread for me, then use what's left to prepare a meal for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. There will always be flour and olive oil left in your containers until the time when the Lord sends rain, and the crops will grow again." So she did as Elijah said, and she and Elijah and her family continued to eat for many days. There was always enough flour and olive oil left in the containers, just as the Lord had promised through Elijah. I love that story, and it goes on to explain how Elijah pretty much begged God to save her son, and he was able to return to life, and the life of the child was returned, and he was revived. And then Elijah said to the woman, "Look, your son is alive." And the woman told Elijah, "Now I know for sure that you're a man of God, and the Lord truly speaks through you." And that whole thing is just so inspiring to me, because I can just imagine, right? We have this widow who's obviously at her wit's end. She's crying out for just, I think, some relief in the midst of this situation. Can you imagine being so starving and knowing that your last meal is upon you, and you and your son are gonna die? Can you imagine just living in the midst of that and just wondering what you're gonna do? And then this strange man that you don't even know comes and says, "God says to give me your water and food." Like, the nerve, right? The nerve of that. Like, she tells them we're about to die, and you still want our water and food? I mean, I could just imagine how she feels, right? Just kind of like, what are you doing, God? Why would you even ask me to give up my last little amount of food to this man that I don't even know? But you know what? that widow had a heart for God, and she knew how to follow God even in the midst of this lack of trust. So she just obeyed. Her obedience was stronger than her fear at that point, stronger than her doubt, right? That something good would come of the situation. And so she did it anyway. She fearlessly obeyed God anyways. And she might have felt fear, but she didn't let it overtake her. She didn't let it rule her. She didn't let it make her stray in her heart from the God she knew, right? And so in the end, she did get all of her food provided for. Her son's life was restored. Everything was more than okay, right? God came through. God provided. God was a God of fulfilled promise, right? He made everything work out in the end, just like he always does. He works everything for the good. But in the midst of all that, right, she had to go through a period where she doubted him, where she was asking probably, what am I doing, right? Why does God want me to do this? It doesn't make any sense. It makes absolutely no sense for me to give my last bit of food to this strange man. But again, she obeys and she sees God's provision through it. And then in the end, he saves her son's life, and she's able to trust him. She's able to trust that he made that whole experience happen to teach her how to trust him and to know that he'll provide in all circumstances, right? So if we see ourselves in the widow's story, right, we can see that our doubts, they don't have to define us, right? I'm sure she doubted God at that point. I'm sure there was this part of her that just wanted to scream, right? She was like just desperate, I'm sure, for some sort of saving grace at that point. And when she was doubting, she didn't know she was gonna get it, but she worked through that doubt. She saw that God provided, and then she was able to trust him. So if we think about how we have to do that on a daily basis, we can learn a lot from this story. I don't know about you, but there are so many times that I've doubted God, that I've wondered what he's doing, that in the midst of doing something where he told me to obey, I said, God, I don't understand why you're doing this, but I'm gonna trust you, and I'm gonna do what you want me to do because I want to obey you, because I love you, and because I know that you're working everything out for my good. And in the time that God called me to do that, it wasn't easy, but in the end, I definitely saw his provision, and that did lead to me learning how to trust him more. And sometimes that takes longer than we like, but you know what? God cares way more about our character and our holiness than our comfort. So he's gonna make us wait, and it might not be comfortable, right? It might not be desirable to wait for certain things, to learn certain lessons, but in the end, it's for our own good. And he uses those lessons to build and to mold us into the people we are, into people that are after his own heart, into people who are more like him. And the widow became more like him because she obeyed. She became more trusting of him because she obeyed. And I challenge you to follow her example today and obey God even when it doesn't make sense. God bless you.